Hello, we hope you've enjoyed listening to Riding with Revere, produced by Jen Coe and Doug Flateau, with the voice of Jane by Janice Broadman and Charlotte Pierce, with support from Karen Dawson. This podcast has been recorded at ACMi, the Community Access Center for Arlington, Massachusetts. The 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War is upon us, and the 250 theme, Untold Stories, inspired us to interview Arlington residents and listen to their untold stories. Here is an episode from that podcast, Arlington's Untold Stories.
Hi, everyone. This is Doug Flateau with ACMi. Today for our Untold Stories podcast, we're speaking with Mary Barrone. She grew up in East Arlington as Mary Dunn. Hi, Mary.
Hi. Hi.
We're excited to have you talk to us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I have fond memories of East Arlington. I lived in East Arlington in a two-family home. You could get almost anywhere along Mass Ave. There was Swanson's Bakery, a number of spas, which would be little grocery stores. We had, and they were at the corner of each street. So we had Milton Spa, Melrose Spa, and a little store called Dick's. I lived on Amsden Street in East Arlington, and at the corner of the street was Bondi's, a homemade candy store. They made delicious chocolates and caramel candy. Mrs. Bondi would allow us to buy 2 caramels for 5 cents. This took place in the 1950s and the mid-1960s. I remember something very historic. I came home from school to meet my mother at a place where she worked, an insurance company. And I was told by my mother that JFK was shot. It was a shock for all of us. Along Mass Ave, and there still are, 2 Protestant churches, Maida's Drugstore, which had a counter where you could enjoy a milkshake. I had fun reading books at the Fox Library, and across the street from that was the Capitol Theater, which showed 1 movie at a time, unlike now that has many movies. On Saturday, my friend and I got a sub and a Coke at the sub shop before going to see a movie. There was a First National grocery store where we went every Thursday night after my father got paid. Along Mass Ave also was a 5 and 10 cent store with almost anything you might need, especially toys. We enjoyed riding the bus to Harvard Square and then the train to Boston, which ran along Mass Ave. We would go there before holidays in order to get things to wear for the holiday, for instance, Easter or Christmas, because, of course, they didn't have malls at the time.
Well, Mary, you talked a little bit about your father. What did your father do for a living?
Believe it or not, my father worked for First National, but he worked in the warehouse in Somerville, which is now Assembly Mall. So he would get paid, and we would head to First National store, which would be similar to a Star Market now, or a Stop and Shop, or a Market Basket, and we would get the groceries for the week.
Do you remember at the grocery store, think older grocery stores, they would bring the bundles out for you. Do you remember things like that they don't do as much today?
They didn't do anything like that then.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a parking lot. We actually took an old baby carriage from Amsden Street, which wasn't too far, up to the First National store. Anybody could ride in the carriage going, but on the way home, all of the bags that had the food in it had to be in the carriage.
On the way home, were people surprised you didn't have a baby in the carriage?
By that time, I think it was dark. So, yeah.
They weren't looking.
Right, no. And of course, it was huge. It was a huge carriage. Yeah.
It could hold on to all your food and everything.
Right. We did not have a car. So that was our mode of transportation, taking the carriage.
Did you, during this period, you said around the 50s to the mid-60s, did you have a car at any time during that period?
Yes, when I turned 10, they were excellent people who, sorted out money for good reasons, and they were saving up for a car, and they were paying off a two-family home, too. Eventually, they did get a car.
You did?
Yeah.
Where would you go with the car? You talked about going on the train to Boston and the bus to Harvard Square. Would you go different places with the car once you got it? Different locations?
Yeah, we'd go on vacation.
Mm.
Yeah. And getting back to heading into Boston, we would go to Jordan Marsh, which is now Macy's. They had, shoes that we got, new shoes for Easter, and my brothers would get little bow ties and everything, So we enjoyed going. If they behaved themselves and didn't go underneath the racks, we would go to lunch. All hell broke loose after lunch because, they had saved up all their good behavior. And sometimes we would go at night, and they had a restaurant top of the Jordan Marsh. And, of course, I don't think it's there anymore. Macy's is still there, but I don't think Jordan Marsh has, I think it was Putnam something restaurant.
Would you get a blueberry muffin, Jordan Marsh?
Could be, but it was like a lunch or a dinner, so it wouldn't be like a breakfast. Yeah.
Right.
They
were famous for that. I remember hearing about that, right?
Right.
Would you go to to Boston for the holidays too? For like a holiday trip with the family to go shopping or?
The top of the Hub. We loved the top of the Hub, and I heard that it's closed right now. You'd go up 52 floors, and the view was spectacular of Boston. And they had excellent food, too. So my parents did things with a reason. They said, we want our children to, see Boston, so we're taking them in for lunch on a Sunday.
That's great.
Right.
I was going to ask you, too, in Arlington, if you had any memories of things like special events. We're talking about some of the historical events over the years where they might do a reenactment or things like that. Do you remember any of those in Arlington that you went to as a kid or anything like that?
On Mass Ave, on the horse, the Patriots Day, they would have that reenactment, and we would have a parade, and then after the parade, noontime, the horse would come down Mass Ave, because, of course, we didn't have as many cars as there are now. And buses, not as many. Yeah.
And would you be able to see that horse from near your house? Like you'd go out to the street?
Yeah, because it would go along Mass Ave from Cambridge, from Boston, and then East Arlington, Arlington Center, Arlington Heights, on the way to Lexington and Concord.
Right, the destination of the ride.
Right.
It's going to ask you talked about going to the to Maida's pharmacy. Would you say that was something you look forward to going there? Is that a good memory?
Right. Especially on weekends. There was a girl a little bit younger than myself, and she came to stay with her aunt who lived across the street from me on weekends. And her aunt would take us to Maida's and we'd get, whatever we wanted, if you just wanted a Coke or something like that. But most of us liked the milkshakes. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the Fox Library, too. Do you have any remembrances of things that you remember reading that made a big impression on you, or things, library memories that might have...
Right. Storytelling. And I love to read, so whenever I had a chance, I could walk. Nowadays, the children can't walk anywhere without being supervised. And I could take my library card and just go to the Fox Library and read a book there or take it home. It was just a wonderful thing,
Did your parents allow you to kind of roam free that way? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I was very young, and I had a job with the lady next door who wanted me to go and pick up groceries for her. And when she got the groceries back home again, she would give me a quarter. But a quarter went a long way, So my mother allowed me to do that, deliver groceries and so forth. A walk to the theater. She really didn't have any stipulation as to say, you can't go here or you can't go there. We walked to school. Nobody drove us to school. We didn't take the bus to school. We walked to school,
What school was that you walked to? I remember your elementary school, I would think it would be, right?
Yeah. It was across Alewife, Immaculate Conception School. There was a church there, and then there was I don't think they had a kindergarten, but it went all the way up to the 8th grade. I received all my sacraments from that particular church.
Well, Mary, we have that in common. That's where I was baptized. That's where my parents were married. So this is meant to be here that we're talking
First
today.
communion,
Yeah.
confirmation, penance. Yeah.
You had it all there. Right.
So you went to that school?
No, I didn't go to that school, but
just the sacraments.
Yeah, like I said, my parents got married there.
Okay.
I got baptized there, and we've had actually when my grandmother passed away. That's where we had their funerals. I went to. This is not about me, but I went to St. Jerome's. My family went to St. Jerome's in between all those activities when I was a kid. So,
right.
But what I was going to ask you about school and activities was that so many people I know who are parents today, all their kids are very scheduled with so many after-school activities that they go and do, lessons and things like that. Doesn't sound like that was necessarily what happened then. What was your memory of that?
I lived on a very safe street, and we played outside. We rode our bikes. We put on shows. We put on little shows in the driveway. So, and my brothers fought with a family of 10 children. They were down the street, and
they fought.
You stayed away from them.
Okay.
The boys played with the boys. The girls played with the girls. We were much calmer.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So a different kind of setup for kids at that time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was so safe. You weren't worried about anything. You didn't have a reason to be worried.
Right.
Yeah.
And you went to the Capitol Theater, you said, by yourself. What are your memories of that place? You said it was one movie at the time?
Yeah. Now they have split it up to about 6. I could be wrong. I haven't been there for a while. But, and it was a big screen, and the most popular movie was playing there. And as I say, I went with my girlfriend. Her name was Mary. And we got our lunch, and then we headed over just a couple of stores down to the theater. and that's how we spent our Saturday afternoons.
Watching movies.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Was
right.
it a double feature? Was it like a couple different things?
Yeah, they did previews, and then it could be two movies. Yeah, yeah. And it was pretty crowded for a Saturday afternoon.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, we would consider it cheap, but at that point, even a quarter was a lot of money. Yeah. Right.
So when you see East Arlington today, Mary, and you go through it, what stands out for you to think about how it's changed and how it's the same? I mean, what are your impressions today of where you grew up?
Right. At that point, it wasn't as multicultural. It was pretty much Italian and Irish, maybe German. But now Arlington is so different, even the bakeries, the restaurants, all of those things are so different now. But as I say, I have fond memories. I loved growing up there. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Mary, you talked about being a kid when President Kennedy was assassinated. What are your biggest memories of that day?
I remember coming from school, and all the adults were so shocked. And that kind of made me think, gosh, this must have been a really difficult thing for the country to endure. And so, I don't remember the days after. I just remember that my mother telling me the president was shot. I was taken back.
Do you remember a lot of people being shocked and sad and at that time?
It was an insurance office, and a lot of people worked there. And nobody had experienced that before. And so, absolutely, they were, probably even crying. I don't think I was crying, but I think they were crying because he was the beloved president.
Do you feel like he was more beloved or known because he was, in case people listening don't know, he was from Massachusetts, the first Catholic president?
Right.
Do you think that all played into
I
memories?
think so. Definitely. As opposed to someone in another state, it wouldn't have been the same. Yeah.
Mary, you talked about living on Jason Street, which is a different part of town than East Arlington. It's closer to the center. There's a lot of historic properties and markers in that area. What are your memories of living in that space, and what kind of things did you do to interact with those historic places?
Right. I taught at one point at St. Agnes Parochial School in the center of town, and I had a third grade class along with another teacher who had a third grade class, and the two of us would make arrangements every year, and we would go to the Jason Russell House, and they would have all kinds of activities for the kids. And it was the perfect age, like 8 and 9 years old, to be learning about history of Arlington. Oh, yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Mary Barrone. You may know her as Mary Dunn. Here for ACMi's Untold Stories podcast. This is Doug Flateau. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening. If you have a story to share for an episode of Arlington's Untold Stories, contact info@acmi.tv. We would love to hear from you. If you'd like to hear more episodes like this, just look for Arlington's Untold Stories wherever you get your podcasts.
ACMi productions are only made possible with your support. Visit patreon.com/ACMi to learn how you can help.